Hey, good day, it's Ketch here, and today I want to talk about a tool that I put together. It's a lawn leveling rake, and we're going to get right into it. I'm going to spare you video time showing me cutting different things. We're just going to walk through what I did so you can understand the tools I use and the process I followed to ultimately get me where I am. So this product here probably cost me about 75 bucks in total, but it's larger than what I've seen elsewhere on the internet. It's more sturdy, and frankly, compared to what you'd be getting from an OEM manufacturer, it is a small fraction of the cost and quite versatile and frankly quite light. So this is what I did: is I bought 3 6-foot segments of 14 gauge angle right here, and I used all of it. I think I only scrapped maybe less than 4 inches worth total, but the way that I laid this out is this is 48 inches wide, and these are 12-inch beams that run the length. Now, because the majority of the action is push-pull, I wanted to have the lowest point to make contact with the material, whether it be sand or dirt, to be the closest point to the ground. And then I had the perpendicular ends, of course the outer beams, and then the 2 middle ones here sit on top of that, which would allow a little bit of material to slip between it, or it's a little taller so it could catch a little more material if you know, I have a lot of material on the ground. And so what I did is, my first cuts were this. I made my 48-inch cuts, and then I made my 12-inch cuts, and of course, as you might suspect, one beam alone will cover the 12 pieces. And then I took some remaining segments here, and this is where it gets a little artistic. Now, I prefer a handsaw technique. I know that angle grinders can cut right through this stuff, but I wanted to kind of think about the process as I was cutting, you know, kind of that old idea of measure twice, cut once. And that was all pretty easy. But you get on this corner, so you're trying to get the farthest away that you can from corner to corner, and you have an opposing angle on the other side for stability. But I kind of had to use a Sharpie to mark it out, and then subsequently come across with a hacksaw. And in some cases I did use an angle iron for what I needed to grind something down. And then, since I had a remaining angle iron, what I ended up doing is repurposing that added angle iron to create even further stability. Now here in the middle, this is almost perfectly in the middle. Actually, this is the true middle spot right here. However, the holes will ultimately determine what you can do. And so what I wanted to do is use this 1.25 PVC pipe, schedule 40. It was a 10-foot segment, but I cut off the top 2 feet. And I used an 1.25 cap, and that fits perfectly between these 2 angle iron pieces, of course with the lower segment aiming outwards. So it allowed a lot of free flow in here. Something else I did is, on the inside of this 1.25 down here, is I have another PVC connector. I think it's for some 1/2-inch pipe, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 3/4-inch pipe. And then I had another segment of PVC even within that. So I've got a lot of layers of PVC going through here. Now for the screws, I did 1.25 by 20 3/4, I think. And it's all zinc machine screws. But what I opted to use, because I don't plan on repurposing any bolts here ever again, is I use the permanent Loctite. That's the red container, and I don't know if it says professional strength on it, but the blue container Loctite is designed that you can break, you know, you can loosen bolts in the future. But this is pretty much permanent, which is nice, because after a lot of push pulling, you know, it would stress the bolts and can loosen them up and kind of put the stability of the overall leveling rake in jeopardy. So the only thing that I did not put permanent Loctite on was this bolt here, because if I need to swap this out at any point in the future for whatever reason, I wanted to be able to get this off. So I happen to have some of the other standard Loctite around, so I use that on here. But you need just enough bolt to clear this distance, and this is and not a machine screw over here. And I put washer. I actually have forced washers, a carriage bolt washer on the outside, washer on the inside, washer on the inside, washer on the outside. And of course, this was a smidgen longer than what I really needed, but it's okay. It's not touching anything. And for safety's sake, what I did afterwards is anywhere where I had, of course, these beams sit on top of each other, so some are higher than others. And if you have kids around, you don't want them to touch, or frankly, you don't even want to get your hand snagged on a sharp edge. So I did use an angle grinder to grind down the sharp edges just for safety's sake. But this thing is awesome. I have an 8-foot beam here, which is a nice extended push-pull. And truth be told, I plan on using this to level out my yard some with mostly sand. I live in North Texas. It's a lot of heavy clay. I've actually tried this to move around some of the clay, and it will dig down a little bit, but really it's not a garden hoe. It's, I'm not trying to break down beneath the surface. It's when I bring in something soft like clay, or if I were to bring in some other dirt or something, it would be much easier to manipulate around the grass. But with the 48-inch spread, the dual reinforcement as far as stability, the long pole, thing cost me 75 bucks, all things in. I did have one little tube of Loctite, standard Loctite around, so I didn't buy that, but everything else in terms of screws, bolts, washers, the pipe, the 14 gauge tube, 75 bucks. So consider it. Steal anything that you want in terms of these ideas. There's really nothing new under the sun. So Catch Talk here. Hope you enjoyed this review of how I put this together.